Boss fired a poor mechanic for fixing an old lady's car for free, days later. A Western-inspired emotional narrative told in the style of Western women love stories.
Opening scene, hook and setup. It was the kind of morning that felt dry to the bone, sunlight beating down on the dusty main road, the hum of engines mixing with the whine of cicadas. I remember my old car coughing its last breath just outside Carson's auto shop, halfway between the edge of town and the open prairie. I was a widow, living alone on a small patch of land just outside Amarillo. My husband had been gone 4 years, and that car was all I had left that still felt like him. We used to drive it to Sunday service, to rodeos, even to watch sunsets over the bluffs. So when the engine gave out, I felt like something sacred had broken. I barely had enough money to keep the lights on, let alone pay for car repairs. But I walked into that shop anyway, clutching my old leather purse and praying someone would take pity on me. That's when I met Eli Turner. He couldn't have been more than 22, grease on his hands, sweat across his brow, and the kindest eyes I'd seen since my husband passed. "Ma'am," he said gently, wiping his hands on a rag. "Don't you worry now. We'll get her running again." I told him I couldn't pay. He smiled anyway. "That's all right," he said. "Not everything in life's about money."
And that, right there, was the start of everything that came after.
Middle scene, conflict and connection. For 2 hours, Eli worked on that car like it was his own. I sat on a wooden bench outside, watching him through the shop window. The other mechanics whispered and snickered. I could tell by the looks on their faces that this wasn't something Eli was supposed to be doing. When the boss walked in, a tall man with a silver watch and a temper that could blister the paint off a truck, everything changed.
"What the hell is this?" he barked, storming toward Eli. Eli froze mid-turn of his wrench. "Just helping her out, sir. She's..."
"I don't care who she is," the boss snapped. "She's not a paying customer. You work for me, not for charity."
I stood up, trembling. "Sir, please, I didn't ask him to do it for free. He just..." "Stay out of this, ma'am," he growled, waving me off.
Eli tried to explain, but it didn't matter. The boss tore into him like a wild dog, accusing him of wasting company time, stealing parts, disrespecting rules. The other workers just stood there, heads down. By the time the shouting stopped, the shop had gone silent. The boss pointed to the door. "You're done here, Turner. Get out." I'll never forget the look on Eli's face. Not anger. Not shame. Just hurt. Like someone had kicked the good clean out of him. He set down his wrench, nodded once, and walked out without a word. I wanted to speak up, to tell that man he'd just fired someone with more heart than anyone I'd met in years, but all I could do was whisper Eli's name as he disappeared into the heat. That night, I couldn't sleep. The prairie was still, but my mind wasn't. The image of Eli walking away haunted me. I'd seen good men punished before for doing the right thing. But something about this boy's quiet decency stirred something deep inside me, a reminder that kindness still existed in a world gone hard. Next scene. Days later, 3 days passed before I saw him again. I was coming out of the grocery store when I spotted him sitting on the curb by an old pickup, his hands black with oil, his face tired. He looked up and smiled weakly. "Hey there, Miss Clara." He remembered my name. "Eli," I said, setting my basket down. "You find work?" He shrugged. "Not yet. But I've been fixing things around town. Folks pay me what they can. Sometimes they don't. But that's all right." There it was again, that heart of gold. I looked at him, that worn-out young man who had lost his job just for helping an old lady like me, and something inside me broke open. I told him I had a small garage out back of my ranch. Nothing fancy, just a tin-roofed shed where my husband used to tinker. "If you ever want to work there," I said softly, "you'd be welcome. I can't pay much, but it's honest work. And you won't have anyone yelling at you for being kind." He looked at me like I'd handed him the sun. "Ma'am, I'd be honored." And that's how it began. Every morning, Eli would ride out to my ranch on his rusty old bike, fixing fences, repairing engines, and teaching me things I never thought I'd learn. Like how to change a tire or check oil without flinching.
I made him breakfast each day, biscuits, eggs, and strong black coffee. We talked about life, about how his daddy left when he was young, and how he'd always promised himself to be the kind of man who stayed. And for the first time since my husband died, laughter filled my house again. Resolution. Days later, justice and redemption. One morning, a shiny black truck pulled up to my ranch. It was Mr. Carson, the very same boss who had fired Eli. He stepped out, hat in hand, his pride swallowed. "Clara," he said, clearing his throat, "I heard what this young man's been doing. Folks around town are talking. How he fixed old cars, helped that widow miller down the road, even repaired the pastor's tractor for free." He looked over at Eli, his voice softer now. "I made a mistake, son. You've got more character than most men twice your age. The shop could use someone like you, if you'd consider coming back." Eli turned to me first, like a boy asking his mother's permission. I smiled through the tears. "You go on, Eli. The world needs men like you in it." He nodded, shook Carson's hand, and just before he left, he turned to me. "I'll still come by to check on you, Miss Clara. Someone's gotta make sure that old Chevy of yours keeps running." And he did. Every week. Sometimes he'd bring flowers from the roadside. Sometimes just stories from town. The boy who once fixed my car for free had become like the son I never had. Closing reflection. Heartfelt ending. Now, when I look out across the prairie and see that old car shining in the sunset, I think of Eli. How one act of kindness can ripple farther than we ever know. That dusty shop, that cruel moment, it all led to something good. Because sometimes, when the world tells you kindness is weakness, it takes someone brave, someone with oil-stained hands and a clean heart, to prove them wrong. And in this small, sunburned corner of America, that's exactly what Eli Turner did. Soft fade out, guitar music plays under the closing narration. This is Clara from Carson County, and I'll never forget the day a poor mechanic showed me what true riches really are.